The reading is from Psalm 91, and this is from the New Living Translation. Those who live in the shelter of the Most High will find rest in the shadow of the Almighty. This I declare about the Lord. He alone is my refuge, my place of safety. He is my God, and I trust him. For he will rescue you from every trap and protect you from deadly disease. He will cover you with his feathers. He will shelter you with his wings. His faithful promises are your armor and protection. Do not be afraid of the terrors of the night, nor the arrow that flies in the day. Do not dread the disease that stalks in darkness, nor the disaster that strikes at midday. Though 1,000 fall at your side, though 10,000 are dying around you, these evils will not touch you. Just open your eyes and see how the wicked are punished. If you make the Lord your refuge, if you make the Most High your shelter, no evil will conquer you, no plague will come near your home, for he will order his angels to protect you wherever you go. They will hold you up with their hands so you won't even hurt your foot on a stone. You will trample upon lions and cobras. You will crush fierce lions and serpents under your feet. The Lord says, I will rescue those who love me. I will protect those who trust in my name. When they call on me, I will answer. I will be with them in trouble. I will rescue and honor them. I will reward them with a long life and give them my salvation. This is the word of the Lord.
Good morning, everybody. It's a psalm which I think, apart from Psalm 23, is probably the best well-known one to us. It's a beautiful psalm, isn't it? And it's a favourite of mine. Just in preparing for this sharing the word today and also Sunday, I went for a walk down to a little village called Driffield, which isn't very far away from here. Because I was just saying, Lord, just show me what to speak on, because there's so much in this psalm, isn't it? It's one of those psalms you can live by, in a way. And I went into the church over there, and then as I sat down, I heard this bird singing. So I brought a little example of this. Could be a Harn Hill bird, because it's maybe too well fed to lift off, but you know. But I heard this bird singing. High up, and I thought it was high up in the rafters, and but it just made me think about the word refuge, that God is our refuge. He is our refuge. That's a really powerful word. And thank you, Bill, for that song, Faithful God. Yeah. And just for that picture of the water crashing against the rock, isn't it? That God is our rock of refuge. He is our rock of refuge. But just getting back to the bird, sorry. So it's just a picture really that I have is like, you hear a bird singing, and I was thinking yesterday of a verse which fits with it as well. Psalm 59, verse 16. But as for me, I will say about your power, each morning I will sing. I will sing about your power. Each morning I will sing with joy about your unfailing love. For you have been my refuge, a place of safety when I am in distress. You have been my refuge, a place of safety when I am in distress. And sometimes we can just focus and we just see maybe like a bird singing with something, but it's like he's singing about God. But actually, outside the church, it may be a storm like those waters, mighty waters crashing against the rock. And this bird, just like picture this bird, maybe just sitting on this tree branch, or this branch above the rock, and all this storm against him. But actually, all you can see is he's at peace. He's singing. Because he feels at home. He feels a refuge. This rock is his refuge. So just want you to just think briefly, just for a moment, what does the word refuge mean to you? What images does that have for you? There's many different pictures we can have. And sometimes that picture brings a feeling and emotion as well. When we say God is our refuge, or when we have a refuge, how does that feel? How does that look to us? Just think on that for a moment. Maybe a person, a place, or a power. And I was reading during the week last week, someone sent in a card saying about Harnhill, I felt warmly held, a real feeling of refuge, going home less weary and with a renewed sense of hope. So some places can feel like a refuge because it's coming out of the storm into a quiet place, a place where there's peace, isn't it? That's just that picture of that bird singing. It's at peace. It's not focusing what's around, it's just in peace inside. And I was looking up, there's also just felt today there's the invitation from the Lord to each of us, just an invitation to he says, let me be your refuge. Let me be your refuge. Whatever's going on in your life, let me be your refuge. And I was looking up the Hebrew meaning and word for refuge, and one of the words is chasa or chaka, which means shelter, protection, something you run or flee to. That's a refuge in the original meaning. And also another meaning is to put one's trust in, to lean on, to believe, to put our hope in. In the Old Testament, there was actually places, 6 cities, which were marked out as cities of refuge. And these particularly were places of safety and protection. And they were actually particularly for a haven for people who had unintentionally committed murder. And God had set these places about that they could go there because they were under threat of being killed by the relatives. But they could go there, and if they followed certain things, in a way they atoned for their sin. They were then allowed to be free. But it was a place of refuge for them. And in the same way, Jesus has become our refuge, because he is our atonement, isn't he? He took on all our sin, like with the people who unintentionally murdered people. He is our refuge. He is our place of atonement. And lastly, just a dictionary definition of the word refuge is shelter, protection from trouble, and take refuge from a storm. It's a place of safety, security, and rest. A place to flee to when storms and enemies surround us. And to me, that the sense that I got of that word refuge, really, and what my heart desired when I think of refuge is actually being safe. I don't know if that's something that maybe you had a picture, just a sense of, that's a refuge for me. It's somewhere where I feel safe, that I know I'm safe. And also within that, I thought, how do I convey that today? And I just thought of the words, So you got a picture, a beautiful picture there of a refuge, a fortress. But I was thinking of the word, obviously, the word I had was safe. And there's 4 letters, there's S. So I'm going to go through them, and this is how, hopefully, it'll be easy. Just be simple and speak to you. So, but also I was just thinking of past roles that I'd done a number of years ago, working with homeless people and people on the streets, and young people in particular I've worked with who are homeless. And often when I worked in some places, I used to deal with women who were fleeing violence, obviously, and I often took them to a women's refuge around the county. And that can be a place, it may be something you've experienced yourself. It can hopefully be a place of safety. A refuge is a place, which is protected as well, isn't it? The enemies can't get there. And with young people, often dealt with very vulnerable young people, and God used me to set up a charity and to train volunteers to take in young people in that who needed a place of safety for a few nights, and they took them in and fed them well. And often, just that place of home and love for a few nights. But there's like a refuge, and actually, although different agencies referred them, they didn't know where they were going to go because the volunteers' homes were kept secret, because that meant that no one knew where they were being placed. They could not be found because it was a safe place. And they trusted us with that because those young people obviously were very precious, being through a hard time. So that to me is that's providing shelter. And so it's not just a place, it's actually something which meets our emotions, our hearts, protects us. So the first letter of the word safe is S, which I felt means shelter. And from this psalm it is, isn't it? In Psalm 91, just that, he describes in verses 1 to 2, in the New Living Translation, as those who live in the shelter of the Most High will find rest in the shadow of the Almighty. The shelter, so safe is actually a place of shelter, like women's refuge. It's a place of shelter, shelter from the storms, from what's going on. And in some versions, they say it uses the word secret place as well, and that's not something which is a nasty secret. It's it's a secret place. I was listening a while ago to a gentleman called Brigham, and he said that he had this picture, God gave him this picture of what the secret place is. And if you think of the Lord of the Rings, and I think they're the orcs, aren't they, something like that. The orcs are the nasty things. And he was like being chased, he felt he was being chased by them. And God provided this secret place with him. And he was just like going inside a little booth. But it was see-through, he could see everything outside. And these orcs came, but they couldn't see him, because he was in the secret place with God. It's like we're protected in that secret place with him. And the Hebrew word for secret place is seter, S-E-T-E-R. And there's 3 letters. The first letter describes, and I drew a picture just before the service. I'm not very good at drawing, so bear with me. But the first letter is a letter called Semek, and basically it's like a half semicircle, which is like a heart, with a lid on. And the actual meaning of that word Semek, letter Semek, is, and in this word is to come into God's heart. It's the invitation to come into God's heart, his secret place. And the lid over it is like a shelter. So it's a shelter, it's a secret place. It's also the second letter talks about it's a place where God shares with us the secrets of his heart as we spend time in quiet with him. And we can share secret things with him that no one else knows. It's a place of safety. And the last lesson means the Holy Spirit's the one who leads us into that place. So the first part of shelter I felt was secret place. And the second part, which talks about we'll find rest in the shadow of the Almighty. And if you think, some of you might have known Simon, who was here before. I used to call him Big Simon. I'm Little Simon, because he was 6'10". So if I walk right next to him, and it means if you're in close fellowship with somebody, you walk right next to them, don't you? But when the sun's shining, the shadow of Simon would overshadow me. And that's the shadow. If we have God, and God is up high, isn't he? He's on high. So his shadow is above everything else. So his shadow of protection is over us as we closely walk with him, as we rest in his refuge, of him being our shelter. That is what the shadow of the Almighty is, isn't it? He's the all-powerful one. His shadow is over us to protect us. It's a safe place. And then another part in Psalm 91 verse 4, it talks about, he shall cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you shall take refuge. And also there's another version in the Passion Translation that says, his massive arms are wrapped around you, protecting you. You can run under his covering of majesty and height. His arms of faithfulness are a shield keeping you from harm. And also there's that image like of here sometimes after a forest fire of this mother bird just covering all her little baby birds. And the mother bird may have died, but underneath all those baby birds were protected. It's that covering of God's covering over us as a shelter. That's who he is for us. All these words describe who God is for us, each one of us. And in Deuteronomy 33, verse 27, it says, the eternal God is your dwelling, your refuge, and underneath are your everlasting arms. Underneath us are his everlasting arms, his arms of love, comfort, protection. And shelters often can be temporary things, can't they? Or they can be permanent, but they can be temporary. And they are, as I mentioned about secret place, they are places of restoration. So when we're in a refuge, often we're able to feel at peace. Often we can't rest until we know we're safe. We can't let our guard down. And when we know God is our refuge, when we're able to just rest in him, then often that restoration can come. We can receive more from him, knowing that we're safe. And he wants to restore us, to strengthen us. And so the second letter is A, which is abide. And it says in another version, isn't it? Those who live in the secret place of the Most High will abide or find rest, will abide in the shadow of the Almighty. So more than a shelter, it's to be our permanent place of abiding or abode. It's a place where we can abide. It's permanent. He doesn't invite us just to come under his shelter for a while. It's an invitation to come and dwell there, isn't it? We are his dwelling places. He lives in us. He says, make your home in me, in John's Gospel, and I'll make my home in you. And home is a place where we feel comfortable, where we feel safe, where we can let down, we can be real, isn't it? That's who he is. It's a place also where we belong. Home, isn't it? That sense of belonging. Sometimes you can live in a place all your life and feel you don't belong there. And other times you go somewhere else and you feel, yeah, I belong, I feel at home here. And God wants us to know that we're at home in him, in his heart. We can rest in his heart. Then thirdly, the next letter is F for fortress. So in verse 2 of the psalm which is read out, I think it's New Living Translation, it says, "This I declare about the Lord, he alone is my refuge, my place of safety." Or in other versions it says, "My fortress, my refuge, my fortress. He is my God, I can trust him." My fortress. So if you think of that picture behind those words, it's a fortress, isn't it? It's, if you've been to Israel, you might have gone to Masada, which is a fortress high up on a mountain. The Jews were protected from the Romans for many years. It's a safe place. They had everything they needed up there. It is a military term, if you think of it. It's a term of a soldier, which often God uses. So other words used in this psalm, but also in this meaning, is the word shield, isn't he? He's our shield. He's our stronghold. So that's a stronghold is something which cannot be penetrated. It's a strong place. Even very rich people might have a safe room. You go in and no one can penetrate it. It's safe. And you're protected from the enemy. If you think of a war zone when people are in battle, often they come back to a place of retreat or like refuge to be refreshed, restored, renewed. And it's a place where they're away from battle. Friends of mine who live in Israel have just gone to Switzerland for a few days, and that's like going to a place of refuge out of the battle, what's going on. And also another word which comes with this, because God talks about being the God Most High, isn't he? The God Most High. And if you think of any battle, the place to be in is the high place. That's the place of advantage. And God is the God Most High, so he's above everything, isn't he? He's higher than every other place. And in Psalm 61, verse 2, it says, "Whenever I am overwhelmed, lead me to the rock," like in that picture we had during the song, "that is higher than I," that is actually higher than ever I can reach. That's God. Lead me to the rock that is higher than I. So that high place, he is that high ground for us, that place of safety where the enemy cannot reach, but we can see things still. And often we can see things when we're from his perspective, how he wants us to see things. And lastly, just the letter E, safe, which is felt was maybe the word escape. That's what a refuge is as well. It's a place where we can escape. It's a place that he wants us to dwell with in him all the time. But actually, in Psalm 18, verse 10, it says, "The name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous run into it, and they are safe." The name of the Lord, the word of the Lord. I remember when I became a Christian, 18, whatever, we used to do Holiday Club, and there was this song, I won't sing it, but it's like, the name of the Lord is a strong tower, isn't it? The name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous run into it, and they are safe, isn't it? And it's stuck with me, that song. But it is like, he is that place we can run to, and that was one of the Hebrew meanings, isn't it? A place we can flee to, and that's what a refuge is, where we can be safe. Lord, help us to just rest in you, knowing we are safe in you, your place that we can run to and also stay in, Lord. The shelter of your words, your words. It's a place of retreat, of a haven, a safe harbour. You know, a boat comes in out of the storm into that harbour. It's a place of deliverance and his covering. So just to sum up, Yeah, God is our refuge. That's his invitation to us. He is our safe place. He is, often we may look to a person. He is the person who is our refuge. It may have been, if you had a very good relationship with your father, it may have been your dad was your refuge, your person you'd run to when you were struggling. Or maybe you had somebody else, a pastor. But God he is our refuge. And then there's a place of refuge. Sometimes people may come to retreat centres and that's a place of refuge for them. It may be another place where they go away on holidays, a refuge for them. But God is our refuge. And it is true, sometimes when people at the end of the retreat, they say they're going back now to the real world, and that is true, isn't it? But actually God is still our refuge. We can be at refuge in his safety, in our hearts, in that place of abiding in him, being that branch in the vine. And then he is the power, he is the one who provides. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in times of trouble. He gives us that strength, that grace. I remember in a job not so long ago, I was actually overwhelmed with fear, and it was to go out and people were very aggressive and violent. They used to send me out. But before I went out, I was struggling initially when I started the role, I went to the toilet and I just prayed, Lord, give me your peace. And he actually supernaturally gave me his peace. So no matter what people threw at me, I had this peace because he was my refuge. So whatever happened, he was my protection. So just maybe if the Lord wants to remind you, these S for shelter, A for abide, F for fortress, E for escape. Our refuge is a place of safety.